Now, there were three men in the famous photo, two African-American athletes raising their gloved fists to the sky, and an Australian Olympic medalist, who I'm told refers to himself as the white guy in the picture. Mr. Norman currently lives in Williamstown, Victoria, Australia with his wife Jan and two daughters. He's employed in the state government of state sports and recreation. He first represented Australia in 1962 at the Commonwealth Games in Perth. He is a five-time national champion of 200 meter, a former holder of an Olympic record and 6 Commonwealth records. So to this day, he still holds the Australian national record for the 200 meter. He was elected. That deserves applause. Go ahead. He was elected to the Australian Sports Hall of Fame in 1999. Please welcome Peter Norman.
I'm sure you're all very kind. Thank you very, very much to San Jose State University for allowing me to be part of today. Thank you very, very much to the associated students of San Jose State University for their foresight in what they've done with this very, very important issue. Back in 1968, on the 16th of October, at a big sports stadium in Mexico City, two men made a statement that reverberated around the world. It was like a pebble into the middle of a small pond. And the reverberation of the ripples that went from the centre of that pond are still travelling. It's a very big pond. It's the entire world. Because what was said to the world that day was something along these lines. There's a few things that aren't quite right. There's a few rules that don't quite add up. Some of the rules went something like this. You can do anything you like. You can be anyone you want. You can expect to get a lot of praise for what you are, as long, of course, as your skin is white. You can be recognised for your achievements. You can stand tall anywhere you want, and you can tell people what to do and how to do it, as long as your skin is white. The third rule said something like, if you don't obey the first two rules, you're in a big lot of trouble. And of course, rule 4 said, if you don't like that, don't make a noise about it, or you'll be in very, very big trouble. And these two very dear friends of mine stood up and said, oh no, you're not going to bury me like that. It wasn't easy, because athletes work an entire lifetime for the privilege and the honour of standing on an Olympic dais. Why? To hear the adulation of the rest of the world when they stand up there. These two guys gave away that glory back in 1968. And San Jose State University, you're giving them back that glory today. And I thank you for that. I arrived here on Saturday after a flight that I won't even talk about, except to say that I left at 12 o'clock on Saturday afternoon and arrived 2 hours before that at 9:30 on Saturday morning. Tommy, if I'd have been travelling that speed in Mexico, I would have been a gold medalist. I thought I'd go for a little walk after I sort of got to my room and found out that if I lay on the bed, I wasn't going to get up again for a long time. I went out the side door of the hotel and there's this great big table there. I walked over to have a little look at it because there was also a great big chair. And I thought, I hope this dude doesn't come home while I'm here because it's got to be a big guy. So I had a little look at this table and it's a sculpture. And printed in tiles in various parts of this table are the words of a man by the name of Ernesto Gallarza. Now, I'm sorry to tell you this in my ignorance. I'd never heard of the guy. But then I read a paragraph. I went back to my room and grabbed a notebook and a pen and came back. And I thought, that just about sums up everything that we talk about when we talk about Tommy and John. And I think even more than that, we should have a really good look at ourselves and apply this to everyone. Even more important is the sense and the will that once an historical process is understood, a choice can be made as to one's own place in its next moment, and the realization that the best history is that in which one has had or played an effective part. Did these two guys recognize a time in history? Did they decide to play an effective part regardless of consequences? Yes, they did. Do you know what's going to happen with the unveiling of this statue today? Another pebble's going into the water. Another pebble's going to reach the outer rim of that pond. Because there's a whole new generation out there that have to know about these two brave guys that sacrificed. Did I say sacrificed? They didn't sacrifice anything. They deliberately gave away that personal glory as a privilege. I'm privileged to call them friends. I'm privileged to be close to them and their families. I love them all. It's pretty hard to love John sometimes. You all know him, do you? Thank you. Hey, that's a lot of support I got there. I'm going to have to walk back past him now. But ladies and gentlemen, I think at this time I'm supposed to introduce John and say some nice things about him. I don't need to, because John Carlos is known as John Carlos. He would never be any other way, and if he was any other way, he just wouldn't be John Carlos. Ladies and gentlemen, John Carlos.
And listen, let me just start by saying this is another great day in my life. And I give all praise to God for this day. You know, I always considered myself one of God's kids, no matter what I did, because I always tried to do what I felt was right. And I would never step out of the circle. So, you know, for all you guys in the audience, you're my brothers and sisters. That's why you're here now. That's why you were there yesterday. So for this very auspicious occasion, It's only apropos that God brought us all here together, brought Peter from Australia, brought Lee back in from Alabama, brought this fine Dr. Kesson in here and had him be the new president of San Jose State. Survived my mama, had my mama live all these years, because my mama waited a lot of years for this day. Many years. My beautiful kids, my sister, it's just unbelievable. Y'all could say there's so many of my friends out there in the audience, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention all of you. And I would like to call you by name, but it's just too many of you. But I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate the fact that you took the time to share this with us this evening. Now that I got past the political aspect of it, let's just get down and have some fun. Well, years ago when I came to San Jose State, I came here because I felt that these young guys out here in San Jose was really saying something in the athletic realms. As an athlete, you always want to compete against the best. And throughout the world, I felt that San Jose State was the best. But they was missing one piece. I was wondering how long it was going to take them before they realized that they couldn't sail the ship without that piece. So I said, well, let me help them. Let me just truck on down to San Jose. And as God put everything together, because God's hand is in everything that we're doing right now. God's hand was in Rico's work, what he did here tonight. So we went into San Jose. God was working there. He was working a long time before these guys even know that he was working on them. Because I remember when I was a little kid, me and Goose Tatum and everybody come through Harlem, did a little number in my hallway, and I met this Jewish fella by the name of Abe Sappelstein. And Abe had this vision to make a basketball team, not to score hoops, but to serve society. To make it a humanitarian team. And when I went to San Jose, and I went into my brother's house and my sister's house, which is Jerry Williams and Ethel Williams. They were so warm and so courageous to bring all these people into their house. And everybody, when you got guys in there and everybody think they're the baddest in the West, everybody's strutting around, you get a chance to see one another. Who's that guy? Oh, that's so-and-so from so-and-so. Who's that guy? Oh, that's so-and-so from so-and-so. Well, who's the big guy with the legs up in his chin? Well, that's Big T. I mean, they know his name, but everybody else was so-and-so. Well, who's the guy with the big fro, looking like the Tasmanian devil? Oh, that's Lee Evans. And who's the guy over there, the gangster? Oh, that's the owner of the house. Now, I always tell Jerry, and I'm going to tell you, hadn't it been for Jerry Williams and Ethel Williams, better known as Poochie, had it been for them, I really think they'd have changed the course of history had they not been there and showed the love that they did. Because I think these guys is the explosive part, Tommy Smith and the rest of the guy from Speed City. There's the boom, but I was the wick that took the fire to him. So when we got there, and everybody's running around sporting their goods, they look and say, man, who's this dude walking like he just came out of the penitentiary? And incidentally, I might add, I went to Catholic school. Seeing this is not a religious day. But I did go to Catholic school, and I remember one day they threw me out of school. And they threw me out of school because my mom thought I was a bad kid. But I wasn't bad. It was my walk. I had this unique walk, and the nuns, the mother said, well, I don't want Johnny walking across the stage in graduation, so what we do, we just kick him out. I thought that was kind of racist. Because a black man got a penitentiary walk. God gave me this walk. I didn't go to the penitentiary. And they wanted me to change my walk. They wanted to put a book on my head and walk with the book. And I had to turn around quite distinctly and say to them, you guys are in the first pew with God. Y'all supposed to be religious people. Now God gave me this walk. Why do you want me to change it? You'll see when I leave the podium. But in any case, I knew right then that I was not like the norm. You know, a lot of guys swim downstream, not to make a fuss. But for me, swimming downstream is like following the pack. And I like to go upstream because I'm looking for new adventures and higher ground. That's always been my life. That's been my wife's worry today. That's been my mother's worry for 60 years, which is my age. You know, for many years I sit back and I look at my mother. And my mother, you know, I'm glad that you guys have a water shortage here because my mother will give you water before she leaves. My mother's a crier. She likes to cry and she will water your grass. But for 60 years, my mom had a concern about my well-being. And after Mexico City, she had a greater concern. And a lot of years went by. I thought that my mom might have been ashamed of who her son was and what her son did at the games. We never talked about it. I never spoke to her about it. And then one day, I guess about 3-4 years ago, I went to visit my mom and my sister, and we had some quiet time. My mother and I were sitting down together. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, you know, for a long time, I always thought that you was ashamed of me about what I did. And I remember when my mother, I'm telling my mother this, and I'm flashing back in my mind, and I remember my mother had this American flag pinned on her coat. Now, I love America. Don't get me wrong. I love this country. But America kicked me in the chest at that time. So when you get kicked in the chest, you don't forget who kicked you. And when I came home, I saw this American flag on my mama's coat. I never disrespect my mother to the point where I'll say anything out of line to her. So I had to figure out how I'm gonna get that flag off her coat. So I said, Mama, I said, listen, you know, you look like you due for a new coat. Let's go down and buy you a coat. She never knew. And then when my mom really found out who her son was, my mom all of a sudden took all the chemicals out of her hair. She stopped getting her hair hooked up to be the fly girl. And she went right back to Africa with her natural. That's the first time I seen my mother go to the root. And she was telling me something then. But what she told me was, son, I never had shame or embarrassment for you for what you did or what you stand for. But she said, for the better part of your life, from that day to the day, I had concern about your life as to whether someone would take your life. When she said that, it kind of made me reflect on the meeting I had with Dr. King. And I asked Dr. King, why would you go to Memphis if they threaten your life? And Dr. King made a very profound statement to me. He said, John, he said, I have to go to Memphis, Tennessee to help those to stand up that can't stand up on their own. He said, I have to go help those that could stand up but won't stand up. And I looked in his eyes and I'm looking for fear. Because when someone threatens you, you have one or two ways to go. Get away from it and forget about it, or stay there and shake to death. And Dr. King had no fear whatsoever in his life. That armor that he had became a part of my armor at that particular time. And it always dawned on me that whatever we did in Mexico City, we had to do something that would be prestigious, respectable, pungent, shocking, and revealing. We didn't give the finger. We didn't give the butt. We didn't wrap the flag around our head or tie it up like a diaper. We didn't stand there with disrespect. We stood there to say, hey man, I'm America, I'm your son, and I'm wounded. I'm not wounded for me because I'm one of your heroes, I'm in the Olympics, but I'm wounded for the race. And I'm not talking about the 200 meters, I'm talking about the human race. That's why we went to Mexico City. It's quite easy to win that medal and stand there and put my hand on my heart and bring tears. But see, that would be kind of hypocritical to me to believe in something that I don't see happening in my life. I heard Ms. Pitt make the statement about these kids having this statue here so you can question yourself as to what we did here in San Jose and throughout the world. But the thing that kicked me off as a young kid to realize that there needed to be a change is I went to a school and Frederick Douglass was the man that they named the school after. Black man, and I was proud of Frederick Douglass. But I noticed in that school that they did not have any history on Frederick Douglass other than this little bronze plaque that they put up there. And then when I walked into school and really started to look around the various classes, I saw every white person that ever walked across the earth that did anything. And I looked around, looked. I found no person of color. I found no black people in particular. And it made me feel as if though, if they don't have me on the wall, I'm non-existent. I don't want to just be the guy to go and win the war for you and shed my blood or give my life. I don't want to be the guy to go win the gold medal for you, and then when I come home, you don't talk to me or you don't do anything with me until it's time for me to go back to war or go back to win that medal. Because I don't want to raise my kids believe that that's their job, to go to war and just to win medals for them and to take the second hand that they want to throw out to you. To all kids in this audience, I want you to realize is the greatest contribution that you can give to this society is education. You should start a fireball of education to have as many kids, and particularly minority kids, to suck up this education. We need to stop this nonsense about, oh, the professor don't like me, or the teacher don't like me. We need to start getting busy and start challenging ourselves, because you cannot go to a job and ask for a job rather than you going to a job and say, I'm here because I qualify for the job. I want my kids to start qualifying. The only way they're going to start to qualify is when all God's children right here to go out and be the messengers. God, King didn't choose to be who he was. God chose him to who he was. I didn't choose to be the guy in Mexico City. God chose for me to be there. But God left it up to us as to how we were going to respond when we got there. God bless you and thank you for coming.